Hello and welcome to a new episode of Constructing Kingdoms with the Violet Howler, a literary analysis of the Kingdom Hearts story. Before I do my next main analysis video, I'd like to talk for a bit about the importance of accurate translations in understanding the Kingdom Hearts story. While some fans might be under the impression that any point where the English localization of a Kingdom Hearts game diverges from the literal meaning of the original Japanese script is something the development team has given their approval for, when you look at the games and pay attention to developer interviews, that is very clearly not the case. In a 2018 interview, series director Tetsuya Nomura stressed the importance of accurate translations of the game's original script into other languages, saying that an incorrect or defective translation risks compromising the comprehension of the whole story. I understand that translating a script from one language to another while balancing the need for the audience to understand the story with the need to remain accurate to the creator's intended message is not an easy job. But the people responsible for the English translation of Kingdom Hearts games have demonstrated a consistent habit of changing the original meaning of dialogue and in-game text to the point where the English version of some games have plot holes that do not exist in the original scripts. For example, many people complain that the series has retconned Sora's status as a Keyblade wielder from being a one-of-a-kind Chosen One title to something that pretty much anyone can do. This largely stems from the fact that the English releases up until Birth by Sleep consistently refer to Sora as the Keyblade Master, implying that despite Mickey, Roxas, Riku, Kairi, and Xion each having their own Keyblades, Sora's is still the main one. However, in Japanese, he is simply referred to as the hero of the Keyblade, which leaves more room for there to be multiple wielders and doesn't place any significance on Sora specifically. Another example of translation-induced plot holes is Sora's fight with Roxas in Kingdom Hearts 2, where Roxas says,
"Tell me why he picked you."
Now, hold on a minute. Which he is Roxas referring to here? What is he talking about? You could probably make an argument that he's referring to Riku or Diz, but in Japanese, what he's actually saying is, "Tell me why you were chosen." This ties in with Roxas's flashback early in the game, where he tells Axel as he leaves the organization that he has to know why the Keyblade chose him. Since he's been told throughout the prologue that his power comes from Sora, it would make sense then that he would pivot to asking, okay, so why was Sora chosen then? But perhaps the best example of plot holes created by the localization that didn't exist in Japanese would have to be the English version of Marluxia's secret report in 358 Days. In the report for Day 27, Marluxia expresses his suspicion of Axel after the latter follows through on the order to eliminate Vexen. Yet in Chain of Memories, there was never any indication that he did not trust Axel. Quite the opposite, in fact, considering that he and Larxene openly discussed their plans in front of him and were willing to leave him to guard Naminé without supervision. What we see in Chain of Memories was that Marluxia was so focused on his goal that Axel's betrayal blindsided him, and yet the English version of Days tries to act like he was always anticipating that betrayal. In the Japanese version of Days, Marluxia's report talks about seizing the replica program for himself as part of his planned coup, suggesting to players that his motivation for attempting to overthrow Xemnas wasn't as simple as wanting power for its own sake. You could argue that whoever translated the secret reports wanted to have some of them directly reference how Axel played both sides of the organization's schism in Chain of Memories, but that could still have been done in a way that didn't involve creating plot holes with the game they were trying to reference. And in addition to creating plot holes, the English localization team's translation choices have repeatedly misrepresented character motivations and desires. Across the series, Xehanort has consistently sought a perfect balance between light and darkness, out of a belief that there is too much light in the world. The English dialogue of Kingdom Hearts 3 remains mostly consistent with his previously established goals and motivations, right up until we get to his final monologue. In the English version of his last speech, Xehanort talks about how darkness ruined the world and that with Kingdom Hearts he can give the world a fresh start, referring to the world he intended to create as
pure and bright.
leading many Western fans to complain that his backstory had suddenly been retconned in order to make him a champion of light all along. The term that the English localization translated as pure and bright is mashiro, which literally means pure white, as in the color white, giving the connotation of a blank canvas or an empty void rather than a bright utopia. Translated more literally, his monologue is saying that because one will always overtake the other, perfect balance between light and darkness is impossible with the world the way it is now, and that the only way the two elements can be balanced the way that Xehanort wants is to create a new world where neither one exists. Another example of misrepresented character motivations goes all the way back to the original game, where the English version portrayed Kairi as eager to leave the islands with Sora and Riku on their raft, while the original Japanese version portrays her as more reluctant, with her biggest concern being whether they'll even be able to survive the journey. This is important because Tetsuya Nomura has stated that Kairi in Kingdom Hearts 1 is afraid of growing apart from Sora and Riku as they get older, something that her lack of enthusiasm for leaving the islands reflects. In addition to misrepresenting character growth, the localization team has even gone as far as to downplay emotionally and thematically significant lines. In Kingdom Hearts 3, Riku's words to Sora before his sacrifice in the Keyblade Graveyard directly translate from Japanese as, "I believe in you, you don't give up." The first half is a callback to Kairi telling Sora she believes in him when he is beginning to lose hope after his visit to Neverland in Kingdom Hearts 1. Meanwhile, the second half directly inspires Sora to keep going when he is losing hope after his friends are lost in Kingdom Hearts 3. In the English localization, this was changed into,
You don't believe that. I know you don't.
On their own, these lines don't sound that bad, but Sora has consistently demonstrated doubts about his own strength beyond this moment, and it's clear he genuinely does believe he is worthless alone. Riku spent the entire game up to this point being the only one to express faith in Sora's skill and abilities, and acknowledging his desire to help instead of dismissing his eagerness with teasing. So his line in Japanese serves as the culmination of this thread, while the English line makes it seem like he's not acknowledging Sora's pain. Meanwhile, the English loading screen for the Limit Cut chapter of the game's DLC, released a year later, directly references the "I believe in you" portion of Riku's line. And at the end of Melody of Memory, the Nameless Star references the "not giving up" portion, as Sora in the Japanese version of Kingdom Hearts 3 uses the same core word for not giving up when talking to her that Riku used for him. The fact that future releases went out of their way to reference the correct meaning of the line emphasizes how significant it is to the story, and why it's such a big deal that the localization team failed to translate it correctly the first time. Honestly though, the character who has suffered the most from the translator's screw-ups would have to be Kairi. While she hasn't gotten much more spotlight or development in Japanese compared to the English dialogue, the Japanese script still gave us details that provide more insight into her thoughts and growth that the English version removed entirely. I already mentioned how the English version made her more invested in the raft plan than she was in Japanese, but within the last few games, what bits of development she has gotten were stolen away by the English localization. In Kingdom Hearts 3, when she and Sora are flying through the dark tunnel back to the Keyblade Graveyard, and he tells her,
I feel strong with you, Kairi.
In the Japanese version, he's saying something more along the lines of, I knew you were strong, or you're strong after all. This is a callback to their conversation in the secret waterway of Traverse Town in Kingdom Hearts 1, showing that Sora now recognizes that Kairi can take care of herself and contribute without being in the way. Instead, an important acknowledgement of Kairi's strength was rewritten into something that was obviously intended to sound romantic and cheesy at the cost of making her big moment of recognition all about Sora instead of her. But because this was a moment between Sora and Kairi, many fans who pointed this out, some of whom happened to ship Sora with Riku, were called sexist and misogynist, accused of trying to downplay Sora and Kairi's bond for the sake of our ship. It wasn't until the trailers for Melody of Memory that Kairi fans began to accept that Square Enix North America has issues with accurately reflecting her character in English. In the Japanese dialogue, Kairi indicates that she partly blames herself for Sora's disappearance, saying that he and the others were hurt because her strength wasn't enough. Meanwhile, the English version has her give all of that blame to Xehanort instead, without even a hint of the self-deprecation she exhibits in Japanese. Later in the game's ending, after the final boss battle, Kairi tells Riku and the others that she knows she needs more training in order to catch up with them, something that her talking about her strength not being enough was obviously laying the groundwork for. With her line changed in English, the decision after the battle to stay behind while Riku goes to Quadratum seems sudden to some English-speaking fans, or doesn't come across as it being an idea she agrees with. One of the most frequent criticisms of how Kairi is written in the series is that we never get to hear her voice how she feels about everything that's happening around her. And the English translators decided to take away what little Melody of Memory gave in that area for the sake of trying to make her sound tough. And that's not even getting into the instances in Kingdom Hearts 3 where the localization team completely altered a character's facial expression so that it doesn't match the actual context. Like how when they talk in Twilight Town before the final confrontation, Saïx is teasing Lee and trying to be friendly with him again, but the English version has him scowling instead of smiling. Or how the English version tones down the smile that Eraqus gives Xehanort after they've turned back into their younger selves and are flying off to the afterlife. And don't even get me started on how major themes and references are lost because the localization decided to do things like translate Union Cross's obvious Noah's Ark reference as lifeboat. Seriously, Square Enix North America? You have major characters in this mini-series named for the 7 deadly sins, and you didn't think it was important to make sure the translators kept the biblical references in the actual dialogue? Like, even if the word used for the machine in the original dialogue wasn't the exact Japanese word for ark, which, by the way, it is, referring to a piece of technology designed to safely transport the dandelions from one world to another as an ark fits significantly better than lifeboat. Or how Ephemer in Japanese says the exact same thing to the player character when he appears to you in the Keyblade Graveyard as what Sora says to Riku when they go through the door to light at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2. We'll go together. Instead of following through on that obvious callback, the localization team, not for the first time I might add, had the character making that callback say something completely different. And all of this is without taking into account how explanations of important concepts in the lore are muddled because the translation says something different than what was actually said in Japanese, creating confusion over the concepts being discussed. In the Japanese finale of Union Cross, the Master of Masters tells Luxu that darkness began as 13, and that during their previous battles, the 13 shifted from attacking people's bodies to attacking their hearts, casting aside their form in order to do so. However, he says, darkness realized that as a result of this, they would lose their will. He describes how the now formless darkness began to propagate more of themselves that also lacked form, creating a dark hole from the original 13 individuals. The Master explains that darkness which continued to propagate and eventually developed form became the Heartless, while the remaining aggregate of darkness that still lacked form became individuals that await the opportunity to nest within people who have strong hearts. The plan he explains to Luxu is that in order to have a chance of defeating the darkness, the 13 formless individuals need to be given form by providing them with the vessels they desire. According to the English version, the 13 formless darknesses, which were at risk of completely losing their will after discarding their form and seeking vessels to preserve said will, have developed will. Huh? This one could honestly be due to the translator misunderstanding what the Master is saying, since the Master's exposition in Japanese uses very abstract language. However, not every mistranslation can be excused as a mistake or misunderstanding of the original script. Regardless of the reasons for the mistakes, you should hopefully see now how the international localizations of Kingdom Hearts have a habit of incorrect translations that damage players' understanding of the story through inaccurate explanations of lore, misrepresented character motivations, downplayed emotional weight, and the removal of important callbacks, references, and foreshadowing. For these reasons, the English version of each game needs to be heavily scrutinized for translation accuracy in order to achieve the fullest understanding of the story possible, especially when crafting theories and analysis about what's coming next. So I encourage my viewers, when you play, watch, or read Kingdom Hearts content in English, to compare the official translations with the original Japanese and see how accurately the translators conveyed the intended meaning. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in seeing more of how deep I can dig into the story of Kingdom Hearts, feel free to give me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks.